Charlie, you mentioned that your mum was in a syndicate. Now, you've mentioned about adapting to stimulate interest in new people. Is syndicate something that you think is the way forward for attracting all walks of life into the game, make it more affordable?
Definitely. And I think it's something that we have been still quite slow on the uptake. I think relatively recently the BHA said they really wanted to do a push to promote syndicates and to help syndicates, and I'm not sure what's happened. I don't know how much has been done to help them, because all of the old problems are still there. I have no doubt syndicates are the way forward. When you go to, especially Australia, syndication is massive over there. And there is some ridiculous stat about how many people actually own an iota of a racehorse in Australia, but it is astronomical. And I completely accept that it's easier to attract people into racing when the return is better, as it is in Australia. But I feel like there are a load of things we could do here to help syndicates and to really encourage syndicates. I still don't think syndicates get enough from racecourses. You see, they get 6 tickets to go into the parade ring. For me, that's not good enough. I understand there are safety issues and stuff like that, but that's not good enough. We need to do more, and we need to do more of their race day experience. Again, racecourses are improving their owners' facilities, but I think we can still do more. And things like setting up syndicates is notoriously tricky and time consuming and a bit of a faff, and that puts people off, having to fill in form after form after form after form. And I think there's a lot we can do to make them more attractive. But yes, definitely. And I'm lucky I train for a few syndicates, and syndicates I train for do a great job. And we've set up a few of our own. And as you know, if you've got 8 people in a horse, your cost is significantly reduced.
And I'm sorry, I'm going to have to go back to your Racing Post column again, because there's quite a few contentious issues in there. You said that coming from a racing background, your social circle is sort of more varied than others in the racing game might be. Do some of your friends really think that racing is crooked and rigged?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. They will jokingly say, go on, especially the lower grade racing, because a lot of them like a bet. They love a bet. They really, they enjoy watching it. But they genuinely, I think racing has a real sort of reputation issue. And I think a lot of people still, they look at things like, Peaky Blinders, and they think that sort of thing still goes on. Now, I am constantly telling them racing in this country is as clean as you will ever find it anywhere in the world. And it is, 100%. It is so clean. But a lot of damage was done a long time ago, and it takes quite a long time for that relationship to sort of, to mend. And hand on heart, a few of my friends believe, especially at the lower level, when you're talking about racing sort of around, I don't know, lower grade tracks, they're like, come on, you know what's going to win. I genuinely don't know what's going to win. If I knew what was going to win, I probably wouldn't be getting up at 5 o'clock every morning to train racehorses. I'd be on an island in the Caribbean somewhere.
Now, you talked about the poor prize money in England, and you're not afraid to take your horses abroad. Probably most famously Prince of Arran winning the Lexus Handicap in Australia and then coming third in the Melbourne Cup. Do you have a form book genius that can accurately simulate Australian and UK form to know that you've got a chance for risking all that money to go over there?
No, I don't. You've got to know your horses inside out. And I feel that that's something that I'm quite good at doing. I feel like I know what their level is. I know what suits them and what conditions suit them. And we've had I've had more success abroad than I have done at home, and I think that's for loads of different reasons. I think first and foremost, we're taking the right horses abroad. Generally, if I take a horse abroad, I am not one to throw money and just set light to it. I'm quite, I don't even travel much in England, actually, ridiculously. If you see my horses, I very rarely go all the way up to Hamilton or places like that. And if I do travel a long way, because I appreciate how costly this is, and if I do travel a long way, it's because I'm pretty sure that the conditions will suit and that they will at least pay for their journey. And that's the same abroad. And when we've gone abroad, generally it's been pretty successful. I also think a huge factor is the way I train my horses, because I try and train them so that they are very relaxed and content and happy. I think a lot of the time you can see horse training can be a stressful experience. You have to be quite hard on the horses to get them to peak fitness and to teach them to race properly. And I think the way I train, we sort of take our time and we do it sort of with, on their terms, but so they think it's on their terms without it actually being on their terms. And as a result, the horses are, I think, psychologically, they are much happier, or very happy. And what that means is when we go abroad, they adapt to new surroundings much better. So for example, we moved 300 yards across town from my old yard to this yard. And I went round that evening after we'd moved, completely new yard. A lot of horses would have found that, would have just been a little bit on edge. I went around that evening and 70% probably were lying down fast asleep. Not a single horse left any food that night. And they just settled into their new surroundings. Now they do the same when they go abroad. And that is so important, because it means that when you travel them all this way, they don't get wound up. They don't sort of worry about where they are and take a while to get on their feet and expend energy that doesn't need to be expended. And actually they tend to adapt. And I'm convinced that is why we've done quite well abroad.
Okay, I was going to ask if you think racing will become more global, but is it going to become more global for you? While we keep on having success abroad, it will continue to be, yeah. I mean, if I go on a run of sending horses all over the world and they run absolute crap, then I'll probably think twice. But we've had winners at the Dubai Carnival, but the last 2 years, winner in Australia. We were really unlucky in Hong Kong, where Prince of Aaron would have run a hell of a lot closer had things gone his way. Done well in America. We've not had a winner in America. We placed with two different horses, I think. So yeah, while it keeps on paying dividends, we'll continue to travel the horses. But you've got to have the right horse. I haven't travelled anything this year so far because I don't feel like I've got the right horse. And that doesn't mean just good enough. That means got to like the conditions as well. I've got some very good horses, but a horse like King Ottica, who I see as being still the best horse that I've ever had through my hands. Not so keen to travel him. I don't know if conditions are quite right. We might look at it later on in his career when he's a bit more mature, but he's not ready for that now. Okay, and you're relatively young in the ranks of trainers, especially trainers at your level. One of the things you do, which probably the others don't so much, is embrace social media. I mean, anybody that's not heard the Off The Bridle podcast with George and Charlie, they need to check it out, because I've only just discovered it and it's pretty good. But is that something you enjoy doing, or do you think that that's a necessity in the modern age? The podcast, really, really enjoy doing it. It was not my idea. It was George and Tony Rushmer's idea. George and I have always got on really well, and
last year we had a bet at the beginning of the year that who would train the most winners and who would have the most prize money. And we had dinner resting on two bets, dinner on both bets. Anyway, throughout the year it provided a bit of a narrative, and we would take the mick out of each other. When one of his got beaten, I'd still laugh and find it funny, and when one won, we'd obviously to wind each other up. And Tony Rushmer sort of overheard this sort of conversation as one day between us taking the mick out of each other, and he said, to George privately, you two are quite funny together, this might work as a podcast. And George was initially going to do it on his own, I think, and then they rang me up and said, would I be interested in going on? And I said, I said, yeah, definitely, I'm always up for something like that. Anyway, we're on episode 9, I think was the Ed Chamberlain one. So 10 we record in a couple of weeks' time, and I've loved it, actually. It's been great fun. We've had some great guests, some very funny guests. I mean, if you haven't watched it and you want to go and sample what it's like, I would highly recommend the one with a girl called Luisa Zissman, who was on The Apprentice, and she's going to ride in the Magnolia Cup at Goodwood, the charity race. She was very, very funny, and a great guest. We've had Ollie Bell on, Hayley Turner's been on twice, obviously one before us, got one after, Ed Chamberlain, James Doyle, oh God, I'm going to forget people. I don't mean to forget any. We did a couple on our own, so I think that's it, actually. I think that's all our guests we've had. But it's been great, really enjoyed it.